You're welcome to this edition of Update. We'll update you on the current happenings in the Nigerian security sector. And as expected, more heads are beginning to roll in the security sector. Yesterday afternoon, the Senior Minister of Defense turned in his letter of resignation. In the press statement issued by the presidency, signed by Bayo Onanoga, the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, said the minister is that he is quitting on health grounds, and the president promptly accepted the resignation and thanked the minister Alhaji Mohammed Badaru Abubakar, the former governor of Jigawa State, for his services to the nation. And it is expected that later this week, the president might announce a replacement. The former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwaben Musa, was reported, according to the Punch newspaper, be at the villa yesterday. He was spotted arriving at the villa at 7:30 p.m. and was led into the president's office by a senior security officer. According to the statement, dressed in dark green traditional northern attire with elbow-length sleeves, Musa is meeting the president publicly for the first time since he was retired last month. And of course, for those who have been following the news, there have been calls for the former minister to leave the government. The Punch newspaper, for instance, in an editorial, said that the minister was hopelessly confused and utterly unfit to lead the defense ministry, which oversees Nigeria's military. In his interview with the BBC, where he said it is true that their whereabouts, that is the whereabouts of the bandits, but there are people you cannot attack. They are in forests where our bombs cannot reach them. And of course, this did not go well with several people. The Punch newspaper made a point doing an editorial on it. And so there are speculations, of course, that the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa Gwaben, who was recently retired, may be tapped to lead the defense ministry. It will be recalled that there were speculations at the time that himself and other service chiefs were relieved of their duties, that his insistence on confronting the insurgents and terrorists did not go down well with several people in government, including some security bosses who thought that some other measures should be adopted rather than confronting the terrorists. But so far, that is what has happened. And now we have the beginning of some changes at the political level of Nigeria's security architecture, as people will say. If the president goes ahead to appoint a former military man and someone who has a different narrative about the security situation in the country, then somehow it is believed that relief may come. So far, many people are losing hope in the ability of the government, particularly this government, to handle the security situation. Well, it is common knowledge that in the last few weeks, Nigeria has been in the eye of the storm. There is the pressure that is being brought to bear on Nigeria by the United States to the effect that Nigeria has not handled properly the security challenges in the country. The President Donald J. Trump had decided to agree with the resolutions of the Commission on International Religious Freedom that Nigeria had been playing very badly in terms of respecting religious rights of people, and of course declared Nigeria a country of particular concern. And this declaration did not go down well with several people in government, many of which have come out to speak against the decision of the United States president, who had said that he will come into Nigeria to clear the terrorists. Of course, a lot of debates have been split along both religious and ethnic lines, with people, especially in the Middle Belt and Christians in the South, arguing that yes, it is true there have been genocide against Christians. On the other hand, we've had people from largely the Muslim community and traditional opponents of America have come out in the media and in the academia have come out to criticize the United States, that the United States government over the years has been responsible for giving birth, according to them, to insurgent groups that have been causing havoc around the world. And of course, there have been some allegations in the past that even the USID, that is the United States Agency for International Development, had been involved in sponsoring Boko Haram in Nigeria. Of course, the government in the United States and the parliament did not bother about the complaints from Nigeria, even when the National Security Advisor led some people to the United States. They were told clearly that they needed to take some actions in Nigeria before they will be listened to. It was also believed that some of the people in the United States were not happy with the delegation that went to the United States from Nigeria, because some people whose names had appeared on the list of sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria were among those in the delegation of government to the United States. Well, whether this is true or not, there have been pressures on the Nigerian government to release the names of the people accused of sponsoring terrorism and financing Boko Haram and other insurgent groups in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, some years ago, the government of the UAE, United Arab Emirates, took some people to court and jailed them for sending money or financing terrorism, and sent the list of their collaborators in Nigeria to the government of President Muhammadu Buhari late. Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari did not release the names of the sponsors of Boko Haram, and not much has been heard about what actions the government took with regard to the list that were sent from the United Arab Emirates. But the last 2 weeks, just as the government officials were saying that government had done enough work on the security challenges, several things started happening that made it difficult for them to keep on with the argument that so much had been done in Nigeria. And yes, of course, whether anybody likes it or not, it's obvious that the pressures that have been brought to bear on the government from the United States of America is working. And it is hoped that the government will follow up in all actions that are needed. But of course, the government will need to avoid the mistakes of blaming victims rather than taking care of the situation that we have in the country, because the security situation does not appear to be improving. And the fact that we are having pressures from the Sahel region, we are having mass movement of people into Nigeria, people are living in fears, and several abductions that have taken place in the last few weeks suggest that government need to take some actions. And of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will pride himself to have taken some actions. Recently, he announced what he called emergency in the security sector. Of course, the fact of the matter is that some of the actions that the president wants to take, some that have been announced, like recruiting only 30,000 policemen or soldiers into the security sector, is an action that is coming very late and is too small to be of any effect. As a matter of fact, sources believe that the insurgents who have come into the country or have been trained or are prepared may be up to 450,000, and having soldiers of 200,000 or 300,000 is not sufficient, especially that the insurgents that have come in do not wear uniform. They live with communities. They have successfully created the impression in some communities that government is unable to deal with them. Of course, that may mean that they might be able to recruit more people, recruit more young, impressionable people into their ranks. So the actions that the government will need to take are actually very drastic, and none of them has to do with abridging the rights of people, the freedoms of people, and none of them should be misconstrued to mean that the electoral system will be put at halt or will be suspended. What is needed is that the government needs to first of all rethink the security narrative. It does appear that the government is not looking at the right direction, and because the government is not looking at the right direction, the government will not arrive at a solution. The fact of the matter is that no matter how well prepared you get to be, as long as you're in the wrong direction, you will not get to where you're supposed to be. It is important that the government takes drastic actions, but these drastic actions will have to align with the fact that the narrative that government has been running with for a very long time is wrong. And it is what has led us to the current situation. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is Update.